a big question that we have to confront this morning: sustainability of journalism. And I've been invited to, explore this from an industry perspective. And in doing that, of course, we may use Kenya as a laboratory, but I'm sure what happens in Kenya is also very true to many of the markets that we come from, especially those of us who also come from South Africa, as Dinesh shared earlier. If you talk to the SG of KUJ, and he happens to be here, Eric, about the state of our industry, he will tell you that the biggest test or the biggest symbol of the state of health of our industry could be summarized in the number of journalists who today have to do with not getting their salaries. Some in very established media houses haven't had a pay for 5 months now. He will tell you that, it could also be manifested by the annual pilgrimage in newsroom exits, as dozens or hundreds of journalists leave our newsrooms because the media houses can no longer carry them in their balance sheets. We also see that in the, the smaller and smaller profits that media houses report year after year. In fact, increasingly, the word profit is being put in brackets, which accountants then get to know that actually mean losses. So as I confront this question, 6 issues come up, and I present them in terms of questions. I'll ask them and attempt to answer them, but I hope that through the days that we are here, we may find better answers in the unanimity of the brains that are here. The first question, drawing from the more popular definition of sustainable journalism, which is more profit-oriented, is a question that invites us to ask ourselves, at what stage in the product life cycle or the market life cycle is journalism as we stand here today? Those who know say that products or markets go through 4 stages in their development. The first one is the stage of introduction, where participants in that market heavily invest in product development. The second stage usually is growth, where there's a lot of competition, but participants also market their products fairly heavily. And in a lot of time, they're able to get traction with their customers, traction with their audiences, and grow. The third stage is maturity, where it tends to plateau. Those who are weak in the markets exit those markets. Products that are weak also die off, but the strong ones continue to thrive and continue to support society. And the last stage is decline, where in many instances, participants exit. They want to cut their losses and they want to run. So the question for us, as we confront the bigger overarching question, is at what stage are we? Because depending on how we answer that question, some of us then should have maybe a bigger responsibility in making sure that those who are on the stage, participants in the market, behave correctly. For example, if we agreed that journalism or the news media business, as it were, is in decline, then that's an invitation for us to accept that those who are on the stage should basically fold up and run away. But if we, on the other hand, take it that, you know, the market we are playing in is a market that is going through a stage of introduction, then we must find ways to encourage those who are in that market to invest, to find resources and invest so that we can build strong products that can be attractive for our audiences and can participate strongly. A question there for many of us, because the way the media is regulated is that all of us participate. But the invitation is, what do we do depending on how you answer that first question? The second question, and it draws from our own experience in Kenya. Those who know these things say that if you want to be competitive, usually you choose which ocean to fight in. There's the red ocean, which is red because there's a lot of blood, because there's very, very strong competition, and competitors are always acting to kill the other. So the nation is always acting to outrun the standard, the citizen, the star, and make sure that he's the only boy or the only girl in town. The standard is doing the exact same thing, and in the process, we try to find ways in which we can slit each other's throat, kill them, and run them out of town. So the Red Sea is red because there's a lot of competitors' blood there as we knife each other. It's competition-oriented. But there's also the blue ocean, where we say our real focus is in the audience. Our real focus is in the customer. That when we walk into the office, the one question we're asking ourselves is, how do we do a good job today in bringing journalism that changes the lives of the audience? So the question for us is, which of these two should we enable? I think it's pretty obvious, but how do we go about that? How do we go about making it possible that editors and media leaders think more about the people who consume news products as opposed to thinking of ways to bring competition down? The third question draws from that second one and speaks to public trust. That for as long as the audience, as long as the citizens don't attach a lot of value in what we do, then the question of sustainability will continue to be a tricky one for us. And today, I dare suggest that the value that we attach to journalism is not the same value that the citizens attach to journalism. That many of our citizens think that if they can't get it from, the credible media sources, then it's good enough to get it from a tweet from an unknown person. That those two sources are comparable and you can live with any. And that distinction, for as long as it is not there, then we have a problem. So the question for us really is, how do we find ways to rebuild that public trust, to distinguish journalism from any other, producer of content out there? The fourth question for me is, are there opportunities for us to collaborate in answering some of these questions? Today, even as some of the media houses, I speak about Kenya because that's the market I know well. Some of the players in that market are in real problems. They're basically tottering on a cliff. Is it possible that a few of them, for example, could merge and become stronger? And if that is possible, who in the room should trigger, should initiate, should make that possible for that kind of a merger, or God forbid, acquisition, so that we get maybe slightly fewer, but a lot more stronger entities and players in that space. My second last question draws from what I see happening in the UK. In the UK, I don't know whether it was deliberate, but I think they've gotten to a point where if you're in the media business, then you take it as a requirement that you must play better than the BBC to survive. The BBC is supported by the public offers. We could debate whether that is good or bad, but one effect that has brought is that there's a certain level, a certain standard of professional practice that then the BBC is able to stabilize in that market. For us in Africa, are there lessons that we can draw from there? In Kenya, we have KBC, but we all know that it can hardly compete. It can hardly sustain the level of journalism that we would want to associate with as we drive sustainable journalism. So what is it that we might do to just give some more energy, some more power to the KBCs and the SABCs of our spaces, so that then becomes, hopefully, gives us a positive knock-on effect in the market, so that those private players then know that to compete and thrive, then they must invest and they must be stronger than the public broadcaster. And all these questions lead me to the final one that hopefully, and I think Lars also touched on it, that as we consider sustainable journalism, how do we then redefine journalism? And is it journalism that we should be redefining, or we should be redefining the benefits of journalism that we should care about? There's been a proposal that the key benefit of journalism should be profits for the investors. But isn't it time that we also made it or found ways to make sure that those journalism entities that deliver more to the public, that deliver more to the citizens, are able to then use that same benefit to grow and become more attractive? Lots of questions, but I believe in answering some of these, we get closer to drive sustainability journalism. I thank you.